I love lists, specifically making them, not always following them, but the end of the year is so much fun to have all of these lists of things you want to read for the next year. And one of my favorites to do is the this many books in the number that matches the end of the year. So this year, 25 in 25. The past 2 years I have done it that they are all books from my physical TBR and I have to read them or unhaul them. But I'm at the point where I don't really need to be doing that anymore for the most part. So this year I'm going to be doing a 25 in 25 challenge created by Bree from Four Paws in a Book. This is a bingo board style challenge, so I'm just going to be picking a book that fits all of the prompts. I believe the order that I have them written in is top left across and then the next row. I guess technically you could also complete this by just doing like one bingo, but why would I do that when I could be ambitious for no reason and complete the whole board? So starting out, we have a 2025 release, and for this I have Nowhere Burning by Katrina Ward. Katrina Ward is one of my favorite authors. I have given 3 of her 5 books 5 stars. One I still enjoyed and I haven't read the other one, so it was her 2 oldest ones that I either haven't read or haven't been obsessed with. So it looks like it's going to fit in the general like horror, weird, speculative genre. It is set in the unforgiving maw, what is that? Of the Rocky Mountains, and it's for fans of Riley Sager and Yellow Jackets, which I haven't seen, but that's interesting. A refuge for lost children may also be their prison, and these 2 siblings run away in the middle of the night. There's an actor hiding his crimes? I'm so confused. A group for feral children and adults cannot enter. Honestly, I don't really understand what's happening in this synopsis, but I have found that her books just really work for me. Her writing really works for me. The weirdness of them I really enjoy. So even though I actually don't understand what this book is about, I'm so excited for it. Next up is a book with a one-word title, and for this I'm going with Overgrowth by Mira Grant. Yes, on the cover it is 2 words kind of, but everywhere it says it's 1 word. I think I've only read 1 book by Mira Grant, but I've read quite a few from Shauna McGuire, who is Mira Grant, and very much enjoyed a lot of them. So this one is a sci-fi horror. It's Annihilation meets Day of the Triffids. It's body horror / alien invasion apocalypse. Here's the thing, I don't like Annihilation. I have no idea what that other thing is, but I love body horror, and alien invasion stuff is very intriguing. So we're following a character who has been telling anyone who will listen since she's been 3 years old that she's an alien in a human's body, and that the aliens are coming to find her at some point. And then it turns out that that actually might be true. I don't think I've read this synopsis. I was just like, oh yeah, I'm gonna read it. Because I liked Mira Grant before, so I don't know. Very excited. Next up is a book that involves travel. I generally don't like this if it is the main focus of the book, but I'm gonna go with Rebel Witch by Kristen Cicerelli. This is the sequel to Heartless Hunter. It's part of the Crimson Moth series, and I picked this because it says, a witch, Rune Winters, is on the run. That's travel, right? So maybe not the spirit of the prompt, but I don't generally enjoy books like that, and I'm not going to put something on a list like this just because. This is the direct sequel to Heartless Hunter, which is a YA fantasy romance series, so I'm not going to really tell you much about this plot. But I've been on a journey of reading romantasy, and this has been one of my favorites, so I have really high hopes for the second one. The next prompt is a book with a number in the title, and for this one I'm going with One of You by Erin E. Adams. This is the author of Jackal, which was a 5-star read for me. I really enjoyed it. This is a psychological suspense. A mysterious outsider torments 2 Haitian American sisters, forcing them to confront dark secrets from their family's past. Honestly, this is one that the synopsis doesn't sound like something, it doesn't sound like something I would dislike, but it's not something that I would specifically be running to pick up. The reason that it's not like super something I'm interested in is it seems really focused on this family and their dynamics. But there's a disfigured doll that's appearing in their attic, photos vanishing, people are mysteriously getting sick. I think I could really enjoy it with these other elements. On this list I wanted to include a range of new release books that are not out yet and ones from my shelves that I got this year. So I went through the list, and ones that I didn't have on my shelves I added for new releases, and then I added as many from my shelves as I could. So next up we have Cover By, and for that I went with The Family Plot by Megan Collins. I don't think this cover is like absolutely incredible. But I think the idea of having this house in this cloche, is that what they're called, could be some like very interesting commentary in the book. So this is following a family who lives in seclusion, and their brother disappeared when she was 16. And then in the present, her father dies. She goes back to the house. They go to bury him, and then they find her brother's body in the plot that they had for their dad. And then she's quick to blame her brother's murder on a serial killer who was terrorizing this island for decades. Does that not sound incredible? Next up, I have a seasonal book. I feel like you could pick anything for this and just read it in that season. So for this, I'm going with Cicada by Tanya Pell. This is set at a horror film festival about a giant killer cicada, and then things in the movie start to happen at this festival, I believe. Oh, she's starring in the bloody sequel. People start dying. Nobody's allowed to leave. This just gives me summer vibes, which is when cicadas come out and stuff as well. So I will be reading this in the summer. Next, we have LGBTQ plus Rep. And for this one, I have Eat the Ones You Love by Sarah Maria Griffin. The cover of this one is what instantly drew me in. It's a story about workplace love affairs and plants with a taste for human flesh. This is marked on Goodreads as a queer story, so I'm just going off of that. This book is not out yet, obviously, but she brings home this plant that is like calling to her from the mall. Possession, monstrosity, and working in retail. This is a horror book, and I think that it sounds really weird, and I'm into that. Next is a favorite author's new release. For this, I'm going with This Book Will Bury Me by Ashley Winstead. Ashley Winstead has written some absolutely incredible books. One of my all-time favorites, The Last Housewife, is by her, and this is her newest release, following 5 amateur sleuths who are hunting for an elusive killer, and it's following a crime story, and our main character is the only one who knows the truth. She becomes very obsessed and is trying to figure out what's going on. Then we have a hyped book. For this one, I'm going to go with one of the most hyped books I could possibly think of. I happened to get a copy at a little free library this year, so I have A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. This is fairy fantasy romance. I don't know anything else about it. I don't know how to pronounce anyone's names in fantasy books. There's fairies and fae, and I don't really actually know what this book is about, but we're gonna give it a go. Next up, we have the color of the year, and I went with the Pantone. Is that how you say that? I think so. Now I'm questioning how it's spelled. Anyway, the Pantone color of the year, and this year the color is mocha. So I went with Do What Godmother Says by L.S. Stratton. This is not the original cover. It's not the original color scheme, but this is a copy that I have. I have a Twisted Retreat special edition, so we are going with mocha for this. We are following 2 characters who are connected by a painting with a deadly secret. It is a dual timeline gothic thriller. One character is a writer and the other one is a Harlem Renaissance artist, and the one is cleaning out her grandmother's house and finds this painting, and she is very drawn to it and decides to keep it as a family heirloom. And then she discovers information about the artist, and then somebody is murdered, and there's paranoia and stalking. Sounds like a lot going on, but I'm excited to read from this author. I've wanted to read her previous book. I can't remember what it's called, but that's another one that I'm interested in. I'm really glad this one fit. I was worried that I wasn't going to have anything that was mocha on my shelves, but I think this kind of perfectly matches. Next, we have a POC author. For this, I have Mongrels by Stephen Graham Jones. Stephen Graham Jones is one of my favorite authors. He's written 2 of my all-time favorite books, and I really enjoy his stuff. This one is about werewolves, I believe. Somebody who is an outsider and is a mongrel, which is mixed blood. And I think that might apply to his race and this werewolf situation, and a lot of commentary on that. I really like his writing style, and I'm looking forward to a take on werewolves from him. A novella, one of my favorite things. I love a good horror novella, so I have Rest Stop by Nat Cassidy. I have read both of his previous novels. This is a horror novella set at a rest stop. There's something to do with googly eyes. A lot of the promotion to all our grandparents. Why is this dedicated to grandparents? Now I'm really scared. It says, heads up, this story contains a lot of bug stuff, snake stuff. There's a lot more, but I didn't realize that there were bugs and stuff. Interesting. The back calls it unhinged, funny, scary, absurdist. What? Actually, that makes me even more interested in this book. I don't know what the actual synopsis is, so crazy things happen at a rest stop, which I'm down for. Next up is a 5-star prediction. This one is hard because I needed books to fit in other things that were also 5-star predictions, and then I was like, well, what am I gonna put for this? So I found one on my shelves that I'm super excited about. I've previously given this author 5 stars. That is Parasite by Darcy Coates. This is weirdly so heavy. I just almost dropped it. I don't understand, because I don't think the rest of her books are also heavy, and this just feels hefty. But this is a sci-fi horror from Darcy Coates. Sci-fi horror blends are some of my absolute favorite books, and that combined with the fact that I have really enjoyed from this author before and also have liked some more sci-fi leaning short stories of hers, I think this one is going to be 5 stars. They're closer than you think. So we're following somebody that's on a remote moon outpost. Sorry, I just read the synopsis. Well, actually there's a sticker on part of it, but the parasitic alien wears its victims' skins and adopts their personalities? I'm so in. I'm so in. Next up, we have a comp title, which is a book that's compared to something else. If you watch any of my videos where I'm reading a romantasy book, if it says The Hunger Games in it, that's probably why I picked it up, and that's also why I'm reading this one. Silver Elite by Dani Francis. A young woman must conceal her psychic powers and her attraction to her handsome, infuriating commanding officer as she works undercover to take down a brutal government from within. The dystopian sci-fi stuff looks to be environmental kind of stuff and also psychics. Incredible. Haven't read it, but incredible. Then we have A Friend Wreck, and for this I'm going with Know My Name by Chanel Miller. This is a memoir, which I don't read a lot of, but every once in a while I do. And this is one that I've been interested in, but like I know it's going to destroy me. But I went to a book event and she was there, and there were signed copies, so my friend Michelle recommended it and I decided to pick it up. And this is following the woman who was the victim in the Brock Turner case that happened a while ago at this point. He was a swimmer, and because he was this very popular athlete, was given way more slack than he should have gotten. And she was not part of it. She was anonymous during that time, but then she wanted to tell her story, her side of everything. And I just know I'm gonna cry. Then we have a book over 400 pages, which is kind of a struggle for me generally. I think my books average around 350 pages. If a horror or thriller book is longer than that, it's probably just too long. Obviously there are exceptions, but for this one I'm going with Wild Eyes by Elsie Silver. I just read and loved Wild Love, and this is the second in that series. It's a companion novel, and I believe it's following the brother of the female main character from the first book. And this is a single dad, and he's famous, a bad boy. I don't know. Honestly, the synopsis of romance books don't usually get me. I'm not like, oh, I want to read that because that plot sounds incredible. But I read Wild Love for a video, and I was expecting to like enjoy it generally, but not give it 5 stars. So I have to continue the series. Then we have a special edition, and the other special edition that I had on my shelves was already put on my TBR. So I have Antinora by Dory Lumpkin. This is another Twisted Retreat book, and it has gilded edges, like, you know, Bibles and stuff, like those kinds of edges. It is snaky. There's snakes all over this. And I believe this is religious horror. Antinora, Dante's 9th circle of hell reserved for traitors to their country. So we're trying to figure out what happened to Nora. And it looks kind of like a witch hunt kind of thing. I tend to like religious horror, so I'm very intrigued about this one. Next up was a very hard one for me personally, and this is a book with chapter titles. So the only one left on my TBR after all the previous books, and obviously I can't check books that aren't out yet, I have The Immortality Thief by Taryn Hunt. This is a sci-fi book. I don't know. Is this YA? Is it adult? Nameless ship beside a dying star. Secrets. Criminal refuge. Linguist. Interesting. Dead men. Okay, so it seems like there's some like more horror kinds of things in this book. I don't really know. I got this from Mel. I do really like some sci-fi, so I'm excited to give it a go. I haven't really read any this year, and I want to get back into reading some. Let me tell you the first chapter title. The Nameless Ship and the Dying Star. Oh, that's not very exciting. The Lost Language. 3 convicts and a generous opportunity. So yeah, there's chapter titles throughout this, which isn't very common in things that I typically gravitate towards. I'm curious why people choose to do that, you know? I feel like it seems like too much work. Then for debut author, I'm going with Listen to Your Sister by Nina Veal. Apparently, it's funny and terrifying. It's speculative horror, which is so interesting to me. Our main character is now the guardian of her younger brother, and she obviously wasn't expecting to be that. And then there's a lot of issues between them as siblings, and then they go to a remote cabin that looks like it belongs on a slasher movie poster, and it says their lives and reality hang in the balance. I'm so curious. What does that mean? I think it sounds very unique. Next is a book with mental health rep, and for that I have The Unraveling by Vi Keeland. I don't remember why I put this on. Oh, it's a story about obsession and a psychiatrist concealing twisted connection she has to a patient. So I figured if there's a psychiatrist, we have some sort of mental health representation in here. Hiding secrets and grief. This is such a short synopsis. I feel like that's very unusual, but I've heard really good things about this one. I haven't heard of many things about it, but what I have heard have been positive. Then we have Snake on the cover, and for this I obviously have to go with Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins. This is the next book in the Hunger Games series, but like a prequel, kind of. Well, I mean, it is a prequel. It is following Haymitch, so this is the second prequel to the original trilogy, and I'm so excited to learn about his story. I obviously still want Finnick's story, but at this point I feel like that's coming, and I'm really excited that we get to learn more about Haymitch and everything he went through. Then we have a self-published book, and I believe this is self-published. I tried my best. I know this author now works with a publisher, but I believe the first couple were done outside of that, and that is Saving Noah by Lucinda Berry. I read 2 from her earlier this year and gave both 5 stars, and I cannot wait to read this one. And the top says, "We forgive murderers, not pedophiles." Oh, okay. I don't actually know what the synopsis is. So we're following Noah, who is an honor roll student, and then oh my god, okay. Then he confesses to, I don't really want to read this out loud. He confesses to some things involving young girls at his swim practice, and then has to go to juvenile sexual rehabilitation center. Lucinda Berry is a former trauma psychologist, so a lot of her stuff is very dark and deals with a lot of those kinds of things. So we're following, I guess, him and or his mom. Okay, we might just be following his mom dealing with all of this. I'm prepared to not be okay. Then we have a new to me author. For this I'm reading Girl in the Creek by Wendy N. Wagner. I saw this on Instagram and the cover looked interesting and the synopsis sounds good, so we're gonna give it a go. It is an atmospheric and eerie story. It is a climate fiction horror. So it's set in this national forest that is the home of both poachers and serial killers. I don't know what it is, but the synopsis is kind of confusing me at the moment. The one drowning in mushrooms and fungus not even the local expert can identify. Does someone drown in it? So there's something to do with mushrooms, and then a freelance writer is trying to figure out what happened to her brother who disappeared in this forest years ago. But then somebody else has gone missing, and that character finds her in the creek, and she's trying to figure out everything with that because she is now involved. And it can also relate to her brother. Then we have a TBR vet. For this one I'm going with another Darcy Coates, The Whispering Dead. This is the first in a 5-book series. The last one comes out this year. It's one that I've been putting off because it's a series, but I'm doing a read-along of it on my Patreon. We're reading a book February, March, April, May, and June, so we can read the whole series together. I don't own a copy, but it's been one that I've been interested in but a little nervous for a while, so I'm excited to be getting to it. I think this one is a little bit more cozy and like mystery specific. and we're following a character who takes refuge in an abandoned gravekeeper's cottage, and then she starts hearing the dead whispering to her. And then we have a book from another challenge. For this one, I am going with Witchcraft for Wayward Girls by Grady Hendrix. I'm reading this for Horror Bingo, which is created by Sarah from Wicked Reading. This is in 1970s, and there's a home for wayward girls, which is called Wellwood Home. Unwed mothers are hidden by their families to keep their babies secret, and then they're forced to give them up for adoption. And everything about their lives in this home is very controlled and rigid, but then one of the librarians sneaks them a book about witchcraft. So those are 25 books that I plan on reading in 2025. Bree's challenge is linked in the description, so you can have access to full prompt description, the links and everything. I think it gave me a very interesting and exciting list of 25 books to read. If you've read any of these books, I'd love to know your thoughts on them in the comments, and also let me know what you're most looking forward to reading next year. Thanks for hanging out with me. I hope to see you soon. Bye.